Believe it or not, one of the most effective ways to reach people online now is through an online prayer ministry. Now, most churches, when they think about prayer, they think about how it can help the people that are already in their church. But what we have found is that it's really important for people that are not yet a part of your church. There are people with very deep needs that may come onto your website looking for help. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about 7 keys to an effective online prayer ministry for your church. We hope this conversation helps you reach more people and grow. This is the Reach Right Podcast. Well, hey guys, welcome to the Reach Right Podcast, episode number 64. I am your host, Thomas Costello, and with me, as always, is my co-host,
Ian Hyatt. What's up, Thomas?
Hey, not much, man. Excited to have this conversation here today. A topic near and dear to my heart, something I have a lot of experience with. We're going to talk about 7 keys to an effective online prayer ministry for your church. So I think this is something that is new for a lot of churches. What does it mean to have an online prayer ministry? And I think that the pandemic forced our hands with this for a lot of people. This is something that in the church that I pastored, we did this and we did very well. This has been one of the biggest sources of new visitors and traction and people coming to faith in Jesus. It made an enormous impact on our church, is building an online prayer ministry. Now, I'm someone that has always been fond of prayer ministries. I have kind of a mixed relationship with it. So in my heart, I really believe in prayer ministries, but in my actions and the things that I do, my lifestyle says that I don't really value prayer ministry, if I'm being totally honest on this.
Very humble of you to say, yes. And I'm sure that you're not alone.
Yeah, I think a lot of pastors are in that same place. I remember a quote from a guy, a pastor named Jim Cymbala. He's out of the Brooklyn Tabernacle is where he pastored, and he wrote a book a long time ago. But he said in there, you can tell the strength of a church by the size of its prayer meetings. And if you judge by that, my church would have been very small and very weak by those things, because the churches that I've pastored, it's something that while we value it on paper, it's just so hard to put that together. And here's the reason why I feel okay confessing that, is that in talking to churches, I think almost every church is in that exact same boat, is that we believe in prayer, we know about it, we think it's important, but when it comes to our actual prayer gatherings and those things, there's not a lot there. So
funny. It's near and dear to my heart too. And you're bringing back really good, yet interesting memories for me. It's whenever I was saved in my latter college years, I was actually like mid 20s. And so anyway, I was, maybe 24, 25. The church, the first ministry I got involved with was the prayer ministry, which was kind of interesting because it was a little uncommon, because at my first church, this church, they had a prayer chapel. And this was like a beautiful chapel, but it was a small little chapel that people go into, and they would actually put prayer requests in different little boxes and different little, it was categorized and all of that. And then the prayer meeting consisted of 3 little old ladies, and who was at the time kind of like a spiritual mentor mother to me, who was as a woman who was influential in leading me to the Lord. I went with them. So here you have this guy in his mid-20s with all these older ladies, just basically praying for each request out of the box.
How many times did you go?
I probably went maybe 4 to 6 times. And that was a lot, because it always had an awkward feel with just me, guy in his 20s and these older. But I will tell you, God really worked through that, and it established a real foundation of prayer in my personal walk and everything. So anyway, brought back a good, but so
it's funny.
I'm glad, we're talking about
I feel like I've heard so many of your stories over the years. I don't know that I heard that one before, because I had a really similar one. I used to be a part of our prayer ministry. The first place I was on staff at a church, one of the things I led was I was leading the people that led the prayer ministry there. And I remember feeling called to it, moved by that quote I shared, that I want to make this something important. And it was just always something that that it was a handful of people that were middle-aged, usually single ladies, that devoted their time to doing those kinds of things. And I love them. They were fantastic fantastic people, and it was really great. But, and the thing is, like, that was a good sized church. There were 2 or 3 people at ours usually. I know the church you were at where that happened, that was not a small church, right?
No,
I mean, it was a
no.
healthy,
1,200 member
vibrant
church or so.
1,200 member church, 2 or 3 people at the prayer meeting. So
Right.
it's funny that that's the way that works there. But
I
I think that part of the problem is that we approach this somewhat in the wrong way. And especially when we're talking about online prayer ministry, I want
Right.
to pivot here to this. And what
Yeah.
I'm talking about with this is that a lot of times we think of the prayer ministry as a place where church members can submit their prayer requests and have them prayed for, whether by the pastors or by the prayer team, whoever would be praying for it. They can submit those requests.
Yeah.
I think that there's a really big opportunity for an online prayer ministry for it to be bigger than that. And that's what I experienced at our church. I'll share a little bit of our kind of testimony and what we experienced out there. Is that when we at the Journey that I was pastoring in Madison, Wisconsin, I know we built an online prayer ministry there, and we just saw amazing results of people from in the community. They were filling out forms all the time, asking for prayer requests. And we saw lots of people get connected to our church and establish relationship and do those kinds of things. So it was really something that was important to us there. So I think there's a lot of opportunity evangelistically with prayer ministries when it's done right. So let's just jump in, though. We'll get into the 7 things, I guess the 7 keys that we found to building an effective one. I'll hit the first one today. It's the first thing, and this should be obvious, but if you're going to have an online prayer ministry, you need to build an effective prayer landing page. You need to build a landing page that actually works for this. And so what this means is you can't just have a place on your website where it says need prayer and there's a form that's at the bottom of every page or something like that, because you're going to get nothing if that happens. You can't just have a plain page that way. So what you need to do is build an entire page around prayer and what it means to you. And so what we did at our church is we had a section on that page that talked about why we believed in prayer. And we had a section on what you can expect God to do when we do pray. And we talked about some of the theology behind that, as we believe God hears us and the way he answers. And we're not promising that he's always going to answer our prayers the way we want, because I will tell you, you will get a lot of prayer requests that say, Lord, fill up my bank accounts and those kinds of things. You'll see we did get lots of those kinds of prayer requests come in. And like we saw this one lady would weekly put in, I never met her and don't know her name or anything. She just kind of put in an anonymous prayer. It said, Lord, please pray the Lord, please fill my Chase checking account. She was specific about what bank it was. My Chase checking account, fill it to the brim, Lord. And she would put in that prayer request each and every week there. And it was just funny. We would get that. And every week we would still pray for her for those things. But
did she leave her account number?
She didn't leave an account number for
okay.
us.
I didn't know.
But we would pray for her every week, but we never got a testimony that God filled up those accounts there, because we all know that we're not a prosperity preaching people, you and I, or anything. But, I think that building a landing page that spends some time and actually explains prayer, and there's lots of things you can do on this, but no, you have to have a dedicated page. It probably should be yourchurchdomain.com/prayer. That's where you should probably put it on your site. But this is the first step.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't believe how many times I still see, because, I look at websites daily. I see just so many, there's a prayer link. And honestly, there's not a prayer link on every church website. I mean, even though this has been something that's been around for over a decade, that was one of the first things that, rightfully so, churches thought of when websites were first even a thing, was to have a prayer link, or at least a form, or where someone can email in or something like that. But I see it on a lot of church websites still, but I'm still so surprised to just, when someone clicks on that, just goes to a form. Or if it does go to a page, there's only maybe just like one blurb of scripture there, which is great. There's so many scriptures that teach what prayer is all about and that are based on prayer. That's good to have on. That is something you should have on this page, but you need to go a little bit deeper than that too, for sure.
Yeah. And we'll talk about some other things you can put on this page as we get into this here today, but why don't you go ahead and hit the second one for us here?
Yeah. Ask for prayer requests. So that's the funny thing, you have not because you ask not. We know that. Everyone knows that verse, right? So you got to actually ask people to fill out the form, or to to get engaged with you for prayer, you got to make it known when announcements, whatever, it has to be something that is mentioned and asked for. So that's a lot of times a lot of people think if you just build it, they will come. And that's not the truth. Just by having the link on there or the form, that doesn't mean people are going to fill it out.
Yeah. And I have a few ideas on what should be on that form. We did a lot of experimentation with this because here's a general rule with anything marketing or web development related, is that the more you ask for in a form, the fewer forms you'll get filled out. So if you have a long form with 10 questions on it about, tell me what you're wanting to see God do and what has he done so far. And you get into these and you ask for their name and email address and home address and phone number. And you ask for all this information.
Are you saved?
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah. When did you make a decision to follow Jesus? All these things. Each one of those will incrementally reduce the number of people that fill out that form because they're reluctant to give their personal information or it takes more time. And so our recommendation is when you ask people to do it, and on that form, ask as few questions as you can. So what we found to be the best thing for us is that we would have name, email address, and prayer request. There was just 3 boxes on there, and we got a lot of responses. We did okay when we had phone number on there too. That's one of those count the cost on that. I think
I see in a lot of forms it says optional. Like I've seen a lot of forms that phone number says optional, and that probably is a good thing.
Right, exactly. So make sure that I think if you're going to put phone number on there, make it optional. But I think it is nice too, because you can text somebody when they do submit their phone number, and you can shoot them a quick text and kind of communicate with them on that. So I think that's really good.
Good stuff.
Cool.
And other than that, I'll tackle. Well, no, you got the next one.
Let me get the next one. It's get traffic. And I think this is probably the one where people get stumped the most, because we've done this many times where we've helped churches build prayer pages on their websites. They look great. They tick all those boxes of talking about what prayer is and why it's important, and sharing stories about it, those things. So what churches struggle with, though, is how do we get people on there? Because it's not if you build it, they will come kind of a thing. If you just put a prayer request page on your website, you can count on occasionally people from within your church actually getting out there and putting in their prayer requests. But what really is important, I think, is that you actually get it out there in lots of different channels. And I have a few different ways, I think 3 different ways you would do that. Number 1 is you talk about it in church. On Sunday mornings, let people know there's a place online to put in your prayer requests, encourage people to share them that way. So that's an obvious one. I think getting it out on your social channels, that's really important. And making sure that it's shared on maybe that's the link in your Instagram bio for your church is a link to your prayer page. It's a great idea there. Perhaps it's a place that you put it on your Facebook page, you put posts out there about it, those kinds of places. So get it out on social. I would say the biggest, though, where we got the best results is this was a really good resource for the Google grant. So we talk about this. Well, maybe you can go ahead and tell people about the Google grant and how
we've talked about it here. We've talked about it in numerous episodes. And of course, we serve churches. We help churches take advantage of the Google grant. But the reason why this was effective, and you told me, in depth how it helped your last church you pastored, of course, how you would see what this is. So just to get right down to it, Google gives up to $10,000 a month to 501c3. So churches are included in that bucket of Google ads. So these are online ads that are designed to direct traffic to your website or a landing page on your website. So in this example, your prayer landing page. And I remember you would say that you guys would, so when someone went online and if they searched anything for prayer, or maybe it was spiritual answers or, depression or something like that, it would link, there'd be an ad, the Journey Church, we want to pray for you, whatever. They click on it. And then it drove them traffic to your landing page. So the Google grant is excellent for generating traffic. The people who are searching for something that's similar to spirituality or church life or church events, all of these things. So it's related searches. So it's not just someone looking for PlayStation 5 and they ended up on your prayer page, which actually,
well, you might need prayer.
You might need prayer since they're not available, right? So it's people looking for something of interest there. And I know you guys see a lot of results. We have other churches that see a lot of results for their prayer ministry with this too. So yeah.
So the challenge for most churches with the Google grant, again, the $10,000 Google gives to churches every month for advertising on their platform. Some churches will come to us and ask, hey, I hear Google's sending us $10,000 in cash if we sign up. No, it doesn't work that way. You get free ads, $10,000 worth every month. The challenge with that is that there aren't enough people searching for churches in their area or church services or those kinds of searches. If you only target those kinds of keywords in those ads, you might spend between $20 and $50 a month is how much of that money you can actually spend there. So what churches need when they're running Google ads is they need a broader, more things that are searched much more often. And we found that prayer was something that surprisingly was searched for quite a bit. And then deep spiritual needs of all kinds. You mentioned people dealing with depression, people dealing with divorce, people dealing with parenting issues, people dealing with marriage issues, all kinds of stuff. We would target some of those things and just present that, perhaps an answer isn't, sure, counseling is a good answer, and maybe a divorce attorney is an answer for you in certain situations. But we believe another answer to what you're facing might be prayer. And so we would cater some ads around each one of these things here, and just some some numbers so people get an idea of what we're talking about. The church was a small church, and we started doing this. We were very small. We were 150 people or so on a Sunday, and we would put out these kinds of ads, and we would get probably about 50 to 60 clicks a day on these ads. And we averaged, by the end of doing it for a couple of years, we would average between 10 and 15 prayer requests that were coming in every single day. And again, these ads are targeted. So these are people that are right in our community that are seeking out prayer from our church. Now, again, not everyone is someone who is, like I told you, there's people asking for bank account blessings and that kind of stuff. And that's great. Finances are a huge challenge people have. Sometimes they're silly prayer requests, but I think, if I could say that, I'm not saying that, again, I don't think that they meant it in a silly way. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I think that it's for God to
reveal the winning lotto numbers to me. So yes,
we did get those kind of things. And then we got all kinds of ones that came in with people criticizing us and, telling us that, we believed in a spaghetti monster in the sky, and all kinds of people that just said those things. And if you've been in ministry any length of time, you get that kind of stuff, how it is. But I mean, imagine if your church did something like this, and let's say you got to those same kinds of numbers. Let's say you're a small to medium-sized church, and you had 15 people in your community every single day reaching out to you with deep, heartfelt needs that were looking for prayer and looking for God to step in and do something in that situation.
It's amazing.
What kind of impact could you make with that? I mean, honestly, for us, it was overwhelming. And that was something that we had to actually make rules about how we would pray for people, because at first we just had a person that was kind of fielding them, and they'd share them with a few staff members and things, and they'd just be praying for themselves. But 15 different people a day, that really starts to add up, and it was pretty powerful there. So that, I guess, gets us to the next one here. I'll let you go ahead and
I was going to say
that's 15 a day. What do you do?
You actually pray for them. So pray.
And
I mean, it's just funny. I mean, you would think this would be obvious, but I think it can be easy for a smaller church. Like you said, you guys were overwhelmed. I think it could be easy to let some of these requests fall through the cracks. I mean, you really do need to build a team around this, or at least a couple of people or whatever, that are going to ground these and actually pray. And I mean, I think that the funny thing is that, I think the temptation would be, and this is a good thing too, but for a pastor or a ministry leader to want to just turn these people into first-time visitors, right? And not all of them will be. And I think if you go into it with that mindset, you won't actually probably pray, or pray deeply, because the Lord knows you're getting these requests too, right? He wants to see, he wants to actually see prayer happening. And that's how change really will happen in their lives, as we know, as Christ followers. So I think though, but that's important. It can be easily missed. You could get these requests, and you could even maybe just respond to people without even praying. So I think doing that and building a team around it, and I'm sure you have some other ideas too for it. So
yeah, I want it to be not just to not just be something that is transactional, and it's not. There's marketing elements to this. Again, that's what we do. This is a marketing related podcast for churches, and this is something that the way that we are wired and think. And I think that where marketing ends and discipleship begins is kind of a tough line sometimes for people to feel comfortable with. But I think in the end, these are real people, even though it's coming online. Sometimes we have this temptation to think that someone that is praying, asking me for prayer in person on a Sunday morning after service, telling me about how their marriage is falling apart, is somehow more real than a person that typed that into a form online, when really it's the exact same challenges that are happening. So you would never just kind of dismiss someone as out of hand if they came up to you on a Sunday and asked for prayer. Even if you didn't have time to do it, you'd find someone right then and there to lay hands and pray with them and ask God to step in their situation. So don't just we can't think of it as just a marketing ploy. That's not what it is. Actually take the time and build teams around it. Now, you say building teams, it'll take some people. I think when you're starting out, you could probably have one person fielding it, and then maybe sharing with other people when there's other requests or things that maybe other staff members need to know, or leaders in the church. But I think I want to be really clear about this, is that if you're going to build an online prayer ministry, don't just get people's information to invite them on Sunday, actually pray with them. I think that's really important.
That's good stuff. Well, I think that's also a good segue to the next one that you're going to tackle here, because it's a part of this.
Yeah. So part of it is when you pray for people and they're real people, the next step is to follow up with them, actually reaching out to them. So if you just receive prayer forms and I know people fill these out a lot of times because they want to be kind of, it's not as intimidating as going up to someone on a Sunday morning and asking for prayer, or walking into a church building, or making a phone call to the church office. It's easier, and people kind of get the courage to do it. But the thing is, you need to take a step to follow up with these people and actually let them know that you're praying. So what I would recommend is that immediately after you've seen the prayer request, you've prayed for it, send a message right then at that point right there saying, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I got your request. And I prayed for you today, and I'm believing God's going to step in the situation. And it doesn't have to be long. You don't have to give you don't have to give theology to it. I think sometimes here's what we had to do. I'll share this. Sometimes people will say, hey, I'm in a really abusive relationship. And we dealt with several people that were being abused by women that were being abused by their husbands in most situations. And so we've had to, in addition to say, hey, I want you to know I'm praying for you. I have prayed for you. I'm going to continue to. I also want to encourage you to not be there if it's actually dangerous for you. So get out and go somewhere else. If you need someone or a place to go, please reach out to us, and we'd be happy to help you find a place. We can resource
you. And that this actually shows that you care too, right? So I mean, that's the thing too, is that if you don't follow up, I mean, I wouldn't feel like I would just be, did I get prayed for? Did the church just have that on their website or whatever, just to say that they did and they check off the box? But I mean, you're authentic when you actually follow up.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see like this is building into something that it takes some real manpower to do this, right? So someone's fielding, as we got to our place of 15 requests a day, you're fielding 15 requests, you're responding to 15 requests, and it's something that you do. And I think that there's some place for further follow-up too. Like, I think not just, I wouldn't recommend just one right after you pray, but I think, as you know, maybe put a ping in your calendar to remind you that in a week, I want to follow up and see, hey, I've been praying for you. I wanted to see, has there been any traction and how has that been going, and those things. And that actually leads, I think, well to the next one. If
I was about to say that. Yeah. Because then what you should also do is ask for testimonies. So I would assume every church that hears our podcast believes in the power of prayer. And so, and I have been the recipient of many answered prayer requests from God, and which is awesome, right? That's something that builds your faith. It's not a silent God. And so you should believe big and you should ask for testimonies, because there will be
Yeah.
testimonies, and like we said earlier, someone bank account may not be filled up, but God will step in and do something. Maybe he did help financially. Those are great testimonies too.
It happens all the time. Yeah.
Happens all the time. And so, but you got to ask for these too. And this is great to get, because I mean, first of all, when you have that content also on this very same page, so not just a prayer request form and some of the other content we've talked about, but this is great because it's also showing people that you want to hear their stories. You want to hear success. So it's a very encouraging thing. And it, like you said, as we've been going through this podcast, I think the ministry leaders knowing that there is a system to this, there is some building that you have to do and some work. This is one more step to take, but boy, is it worth it. And I know you've seen this at your, I've seen this at my church as well over the years, just how much this has worked to get testimonies from prayer requests.
Yeah, I think just like this is a part that we skip a lot of times. Everybody loves to hear answered prayers, right? When God has done something as we've been praying for it, it builds everybody's faith, and we want to hear that. And so people, they're actually excited to tell you when God has stepped up and done something. So the way a few practical tips on this is that if someone asks for prayer, like, hey, I'm going in, or someone in my family is going in for surgery, or they have some kind of a situation and it's going to happen on this date, you probably want to put a little note in your calendar or a reminder of some kind, says, hey, reach out to this person on this date to see how things went. Because again, if you're fielding this many requests, it's going to be, as it grows, it's going to be hard to manage that. Now, I want to say this too, before we get too far into this. You're not going to have 15 requests a day coming in after you start at day one. I just want to put you at ease with that, unless you already are an enormous church and you probably have staff to handle this. They'll trickle in at first. You might get a couple a week or something like that, but then it'll start to snowball over time. And this is a good problem to have, right? You want to be praying for more people. That's exactly what I think Jesus would be doing, is he'd be stepping into and he did pray for people and healed the sick and did those things. And so it's something that getting those stories though, and following up with people, reminding ourselves to do it. I think that's really important to do that. So it helps us. And I guess that I'll close with this one here too. It kind of leads us to the last one, is when you get those testimonies, you need to share those testimonies. Because this is something that helps that snowball continue, and it encourages and builds up people's faith. I think that, I don't know, we love sharing these kinds of stories of what God has done. And I love it. And I think it's a great way for us to encourage people within our church and people that are in the future looking for prayer. So what I would recommend is, share it on Sunday, talk about it from the pulpit,
social media,
tell those stories in your, with permission, of course, get permission and share these kinds of stories, but build on your prayer landing page with these testimonies. So if you can get them, if they're written, that's okay. But if you can get a video testimony of, hey, I was in this situation, God stepped in, we asked God for prayer, the church came around us, they prayed for us, and here's what God has done. If we can get videos of that on your prayer landing page, it's just going to continue to reinforce the value of this page, the power of prayer, and it'll help you to engage with more people that way.
And I'll tell you, if I came to a prayer landing page and I clicked a brief video testimonial, or even if I just saw maybe a picture and, like you said, text, a little short testimonial, I'd be more likely to fill out the prayer request form.
Of course.
I'd be like, hey, God's doing something at this church, especially maybe someone who's skeptical in a really rough time. I mean, that's encouraging. And I think it's going to, increase the likelihood of someone actually filling out your prayer request form.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So get out there, share those testimonies, tell the stories of it. Guys, I really think this is one of the biggest untapped opportunities for most churches, because you do a quick search. Most communities don't have churches that are actively doing something like this. I think it's a huge opportunity that it's just out there to be claimed, ready for people to take advantage of it with that. So I encourage people to try it. The secret sauce for us, again, was really leveraging that Google grant. So if a church is thinking about doing this and you need some help on the Google grant, you don't need a third party to do it, but there is some skill involved with managing that. We have a team here at Reach Right that is certified by Google and went through lots and lots of training to be very good at getting results for churches in any number of categories. But this is probably one of the ones that performs the best for us. So if you do need some help with that, we'd be happy to help. You'll probably wind up chatting with Ian or Megan on our team here. They really
Yeah.
do great work with those kinds of things. Let us know. You can let us know in the comments on here too, down below. Just you can ping us if you're looking for some help on any of those things. If you have any questions on it at all or want to chat more about it, we'd love to interact with people on these podcasts too. So do let us know. If you aren't already, please subscribe if this means something to you. That means a lot to us, and it helps us to get the word out there about the podcast and get it to more people. So thank you guys so much for being part of a Reach Right family here, and we hope to catch you guys next week.
See ya.